Okay, back again for a little bit more. It's been a marathon day today, but I haven't talked about transitions yet, so I wanted to talk a little bit about transitions and let you see what they look like and why you might want to use them. So that's the transitions that I have built in for you to play about with. But before we do that, I should go into live demo mode. So into live demo mode. Here we go. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is just mention the transitions that are already in Ecamm for those of you who have never actually noticed there are any options for transitions. If you come up to the options menu and you look at transition, you'll find there is a default transition. You can set your default transition in your preferences as well. So you can have no transition, cross dissolve, slower cross dissolve, and then a bunch of ones which I wouldn't bother with too much. So I tend to use slower cross dissolve because it gives me a sort of a nice feel. So I'm just going to flick between a couple of slides and then change that. So at the moment it's on default transition. If I want to then go to my next scene, it's going to transition using the cross dissolve. So there we go, that's the cross dissolve, and it happens quite quickly. And I would prefer generally to put that at a slightly slower version, so I set mine to slower cross dissolve generally when I'm moving between different scenes, and certainly if I'm sort of jumping around the screen. And I think that's just kind of slightly nicer feel. But what I've also got built in is a bunch of transitions which you've seen me running through as I've done my decks as on the previous few videos I've done. So they are built in to the profile. They're in the library and they are over here. So I've actually got an instructions manual for the transitions because they can be a little bit tricky to duplicate, because what happens is if you've got a very quick transition and you set it to go to your next slide, then it will do exactly that, and then making copies of it becomes difficult. So read those instructions, but essentially what they're going to tell you to do is what I'm going to go show you now. So if I wanted to make a copy of this 4-second transition here and be using that, then what I want to do is just duplicate that scene, or I need to go onto it first before I duplicate it, because of course I've now just duplicated the scene I was on. So let's put the mistake in the bin, go to the scene that I was on previously, and what I'm going to do is come down to the 4-second transition and make a copy of it and then drag it between those two slides that I've got. So onto the 4-second transition, and as you can see at the moment it's got a big countdown timer sitting there for me, and we're going to make that disappear. But what I'll do first of all is just duplicate that and then drag and drop that between my two slides up here. I'm then going to come up to that transition, and what I'm actually going to do is go in and get rid of that countdown timer. Now I think I might have to zoom out to make that disappear so I can see what I'm doing. Get back to full screen. So I'm going to the countdown timer, and all I'm going to do here is make that disappear and go to the next scene. But I also want to add some music on, so before I do that I'm just going to go drag a little bit of music which happens to last a couple of seconds long. Now I'm just checking whether it's muted me there. So I then go to the countdown timer. I want to set that to invisible, so you go over to your opacity element, drop that down to 0, and the countdown timer will disappear. And then I want to set that to go to next scene as well. And if I just save that, the countdown timer has now disappeared and it's moved me to the next scene immediately. So let me just go up to scene number 1 and then go to the next scene. And that's how you put in your transitions. But now I've created that, if I try and copy it by clicking on it and then right clicking to duplicate it, to come down and duplicate it, it will disappear. So you do need to go through this process. The other way you can do it is if you've actually created a transition you're happy with, you can do what I did earlier, which is click on the transition, drag it off the scene, and then drag it back in again to the scenes window, and it'll appear at the bottom of the window, and you can drag it up to the location that you want to use. You can also customize these transitions as well. Now, because I've already put the move to the next scene on, it's going to be very difficult for me to customize that other than dropping in a logo over the top. But I can drop in a logo over the top without having to go through all of that process again. So let me do that, and then we'll come back and look at how you put the text in. So in my stuff folder down here, I have got some logos. So I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to grab that logo there, I think, the white text transparent logo, and I'm just going to drag that up and put it onto my copy of transition there. So now when I come back to my scene, hopefully what we're going to find is when we go to the transition, it's going to say MacGyver in the middle of it. So there we go, that's how you can customize an individual scene. So the other ones that I've got in there, you've already seen. It's exactly the same process for the other transitions, and except for the intro one, which I haven't shown you yet, but let's have a look at the intro one. So I've got a title transition that actually lasts a few seconds longer, and the idea is that you probably would want to put some text onto that one. So if I take that one, I'm going to come down to it, and then I'm going to duplicate this one again, drag and drop it to the start of my show. Here I am on that transition, and it says here your title goes here, your subtitle goes here. So you can come in there and you can change that text if you want to change that text. So your title for today, or toddy, and save that, and my subtitle text for today, and save that. And same process again. If I want to add in some music, this is the point to add in some music. Go drop the music on, and then go to my countdown timer, set the opacity down to 0, click go to next scene when finished, and save it. So if I now come down here and I want to run the start of my show, there's my title slide done for me with a transition. So similar process to what I've just done there. If you wanted to add text to a transition, then what you would do is copy it, bring it in, put your text or indeed any other images that you want to onto that transition slide, and then go and change the timer to 0 opacity and go to next scene. So those are the last two little bits you do when you're playing about with transitions. But now I've got my transitions in place, it means I can move around the scenes, and it also breaks things up. I wouldn't do transitions all the time. I would use them fairly sparingly, otherwise it can get very, very busy, but certainly very useful if you're moving about the scene, about the screen a lot. So fairly slow title transition plus my quicker transition. Okay, one thing to note, I can't give you any music because there's licensing problems with that, so you have to go to your own favourite music platform and download a little bit of music to go along with your transition, if indeed you want a little bit of music with your transition. So that's transitions for you and how you can play about with those. You can't change the colours of the transition before anybody asks, and indeed throughout the presentation I have got colour palettes matched up for all the different shapes and things like that. You can't change those either, so you can't just say, oh, I want the orange box yellow or something like that. You're restricted to what shapes are in the profile and what colours they are. Now, if you're a clever graphic designer, then you probably can go grab the elements and drop them out and then recolor them to your own brand and then drop them back in again. So you could certainly do that if you wanted to. You'd then have to then do that for every scene that you were building up, so it would be a bit of a to and fro even for a seasoned graphic designer to bother doing that. But you can do that. There are also some bulk colorization tools out there, so you could take a load of shapes out, drop them into bulk colorization and change all of the colors of all of the shapes at once that you wanted to. So you could certainly do that. And as I previously mentioned, if there's a shape that's missing and you want to build your own in Adobe Illustrator or Keynote, whatever, then just do that and bring it in as a PNG, drop it into the library, and then it's there for you to use, and you can use little eyedroppers to coordinate the colours if that's what you want to do. So thereeth lendeth the lesson for today. I think I've got to do like an intro, one or two slides recording. My brain's going now, so I will do that and add some more stuff to go up to the channel for cleverer things that you can do with all of this stuff at a later point. But I'm hoping to go sort of organise my YouTube channel now. So for now, see you later. Bye from Edinburgh.